Hey, Motorman here, and today I'm at Newport Richey Harley-Davidson, and I'm going to take a test ride. It's about time on the Pan America. This happens to be the Pan America Special. I'm going to tell you all about it. And while I was there, I happened to notice two Gold Wings were traded in Harley-Davidsons, and not only that, but somebody also traded a BMW 1600 in on a Harley-Davidson. I'm thinking they must have watched my last video and they realized how difficult those bikes were to master at low speeds. They took my advice and they got a Harley-Davidson, which is very easy to handle at low speeds. I'm just kidding, but they did have these bikes here and they were traded in for Harley-Davidsons. So let's move on to the Pan America. First, let me say about this bike, I've seen a lot of pictures of it. To me, pictures of it just really don't do it justice. It doesn't look very good in pictures. It looks much better in person. Now, these motorcycles weren't built for styling or looks. They were built for a certain purpose, and the purpose is touring, both on and off the road. That's why they have sort of a utilitarian look about them, not only this motorcycle, but all the adventure tourers. They're built for a purpose. Now, I'm standing next to the bike, and the seat comes up to just below my waist. There's a 31-inch seat height. It is kind of high, but this motorcycle has the optional adaptive suspension, which really comes in handy because when the bike comes to a stop, it drops down about 1.5 inches. So with that 31-inch seat height, I'm not sure if that's what they say at the specs. I don't know if that means when it's up as far as it goes or when you bring it to a stop. They also have an optional reach seat, which brings you closer to the bars and a little bit lower to the ground. So at 5'7", I had no problem, almost flat-footed on the bike when it settles down that 1.5 inches with the suspension. But it's really not a problem. The bike is very well balanced. The weight is down low. And by the way, this also has the optional spoke wheels. And these, they, by the way, run tubeless tires. And you can actually, if you have a problem with the spokes, you can tighten them or replace the spokes without taking the tire off the rim, which I think is a very good idea, because if you're going to be out really doing adventure touring, off-road, that could come in handy. You always want to carry some spare spokes, as well as a tire repair kit. Really comes in handy if you're going to do a lot of off-roading out in the boonies. The bike also comes standard with a guard that goes around the radiator, because these are water-cooled motors. It's a 60-degree V-twin, water-cooled, 94 foot-pounds of torque, and 150 horsepower at 9,000 RPMs. I believe it revs up to 10,000 though. So again, this is a bike built for a purpose, and I can tell you from riding it, it's more than capable of on-the-road touring on a 1,000-mile day. The windshield, by the way, is adjustable with a little knob on the side there. It also goes up and down and back and forth. I noticed while riding it, even up to 60, 70 miles an hour, I got no buffeting at all. So it does a great job of keeping the wind from striking your helmet, and of course, it keeps the wind completely off your chest. Also has hand guards. That's another way to block some wind. That'll come in handy in colder weather. First thing I'm going to do on this bike is pull it around back so I can back up the motorcycle. So with the seat down low, I'm almost got my heels on the ground. So it's enough for me at 5'7", and I like this feature where every time you come to a stop, it drops the bike down 1.5 inches or 2 inches. In rain mode, the throttle is not overly sensitive. In fact, it's much less sensitive than what I expected. I'm not going to attempt to scrape the boards on this bike or the pegs, because I'm betting it's got at least a 45-degree lean angle. And if you go more than 45 degrees, you'll lose traction before you lose lean angle. See if I can get on road mode. I'm not sure if you got to stop to do that, but there it is. There's the mode button. That looks like touring mode. and it appears the throttle is a little more sensitive, but not overly so. With 150 horsepower and 560 pounds, it should provide all the performance you could possibly want. I believe it's around 7 inches of travel. Might be 7.8 inches of travel in the suspension, and that's for going off-road. That's where you really need that suspension travel, but on the road it makes for a very, very plush ride. Third gear right now at 42 miles an hour. A lot of acceleration and pickup on this bike. Of course, this motorcycle has ABS, which I believe you can shut off for off-road situations, and also cornering ABS. The signal lights on this bike, you have just one switch to turn both of them, similar to European or Japanese motorcycles. I would imagine that's because most people who choose this motorcycle would be looking at those bikes as well, or have had similar motorcycles in the past, maybe not a Harley-Davidson rider, and they wouldn't be familiar with the two-switch signal light button on Harley-Davidson, so they make it just one. I'm looking well over the top of the windshield, and at these speeds here, 30, 40, 45 miles an hour or so, the windshield is doing an excellent job of blocking the wind. We'll pick up some speed a little bit later on. Traffic is very heavy, by the way. This road I'm going on is called Trouble Creek Road. If you live in the area, it's not in great shape. A lot of bumps. There's some twisties a little bit down further, but the road is in bad shape, but you wouldn't know it on this motorcycle. The ride is just ultra plush, and that's as it should be with this much suspension travel. Oh yeah, 150 horsepower, 560 pound motorcycle. That's all you're ever gonna need. I'd say the transmission is a wide ratio. This bike winds up to, believe it or not, 10,000 RPMs. It's totally different from any Harley-Davidson engine ever before. And I'll bet they did some serious R&D on this motorcycle because it's a highly competitive field. Adventure touring is one of the types of motorcycles that it's really growing. These and dirt bikes. So when you're selling a motorcycle in this price range, which is, I think they start at $17,900, and then this model I believe is $19,900. well, you better be at least as good as the competition. And I'm sure that the goal at Harley-Davidson was to make it even better than the competition. I've only ridden the GS 1250, the BMW, at my course, so all I can say is they are extremely nimble at low speeds, short wheelbase, short rake. Handlebars turn quite a distance from lock to lock. That makes for a very maneuverable motorcycle at low speeds, and you need maneuverability when you be going off-road. If you got to get out of tight spots, you're going to need all the lock you can get. I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but I've got my half glove on one hand, and I know that pisses off the motorcycle PC safety police on YouTube, but I've got to use this camera, sometimes shut it on off a few times during the ride. And the buttons on the camera are tiny, so that's why I wear the half glove on the right side. Looking down here, it looks like we've got some rain coming in. Very fast motorcycle. By the way, both the clutch and the brake levers are adjustable. There's a little dial here. I don't know if you can see that, so you can set the clutch friction zone where you want it. Same thing with the brake lever. That's a nice feature. It is generally found on this type of motorcycle. Brakes are very powerful. Let's get it down into first gear and see what that's like. Yeah, this runs like a sport bike. Completely different from any other Harley-Davidson ever built. And with this type of motorcycle, that's a good thing. Harley-Davidson has been building heavyweight cruisers for over 100 years. But heavyweight cruisers don't do too well off-road. Now, I know I did a video about riding in gravel. My point being, if you get that's the main thing you do, yeah, you ought to get a bike like this instead of a Harley-Davidson heavyweight touring motorcycle. They're not made for it. You can do it, but if you don't have to, you can avoid it. I wouldn't be seeking out roads, gravel or dirt roads, on a heavyweight touring motorcycle. That's what you do on this kind of bike. That's what they're made for. And this bike, this type of motorcycle, is just as comfortable, and some may say even more so, for long distance touring. Big panniers, also known as saddlebags, are available for this bike, as well as the top box. Just about anything you could think of is already in production from Harley-Davidson for this motorcycle. Seat is very comfortable, and I believe that there's an optional lower seat available as well for this bike. So in addition to the suspension coming down at the stop, you can also get a lower seat. That allows this type of motorcycle to fit even more riders, size-wise. extremely fast. 1250 cc's. A lot of people think that the bigger the motor, the faster the motorcycle. Well, that's not true at all. It depends on where the motor makes its power. This bike makes its power at a higher RPM range, so less torque than you'd find on a heavyweight Harley-Davidson cruiser, but a lot more horsepower at the high end. I can't say enough about how nice this motorcycle rides. So comfortable. Riding position is almost dead upright, and you could stand up on it, because when you're off-road, that's what you need to do to get through some rough stuff. I think that if people that want to buy this type of motorcycle, the Adventure Tourer, if they ride this bike, you can compare it to any of the other Adventure Tourers on the road. And since they're price-wise, they're pretty much the same. These are at the higher end of the adventure touring segment. The only one thing you got for you with the Harley-Davidson is you got dealers just about any place you might be riding. Can't be said for, well, the main competition, BMW. There are enough dealers for BMWs, but not nearly as many as Harley. Harley's got, I think in this country, 700 dealers, total 1,500 around the world. But if you're in the U.S., and I don't care where you're riding, you're not too far from a Harley-Davidson dealership. Test the brakes again, they're just fantastic brakes. Bike flies. Handle's beautiful. This 10-mile-per-hour sign, that's under the worst conditions here in Florida. That would be pouring rain with standing water on the road. So easily you can go a lot faster than 10 miles an hour on those kind of curves. Nice upright riding position, upright riding position. Perfect for all-day rides on pavement or in the rough stuff off the road. Overall, the riding experience on this bike is just terrific. It's fun to ride, it's extremely nimble, it handles beautifully, it takes the curves just fantastic. It's a plush, soft ride. And if you're in the market for an adventure tour, you got to take this bike for a ride. Price-wise, it's right in there with the top-of-the-line BMW GS 1250. I've never taken one of those for any kind of a distance ride. Like I said, I've just ridden them on the course. They're a great bike as well. But you got to ride this bike to appreciate it. If you're going to do some serious touring, maybe from Florida to Alaska where the roads are horrible, this is the kind of bike you need. I hope you enjoyed this road test, and I'll see you next time.